I'm aware that if you are standing on the top of the Mount of Olives, facing west, looking across the Kidron Valley, you get quite a view of the city of Jerusalem. You can see the remains of the great temple of Herod, where Jesus taught on occasion. And you can also see the Golden Gate on the east side of the city of Jerusalem, the door through which Jesus entered Jerusalem on that day, which we now call the triumphal entry. If you've ever seen pictures of that gate, it's not hard to visualize that first Palm Sunday, 2,000 plus years ago, when Jesus and his small band of disciples came down from the town of Bethany, crossed over that Kidron Valley, and then began to climb the hill up toward that Golden Gate while the people were waving their palm branches and shouting the Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Had you and I been there a few days later, we would have seen another hill with crosses on it, one of which Jesus died on. One of the questions that is often asked during Holy Week is the question, who killed Jesus? So often it's tempting to look at history in terms of good versus evil or light versus darkness. But the crucifixion of Jesus that occurred on that Good Friday seems so heinous that one would naturally expect that the people who killed Jesus were terrible murderers, evil people, ruthless. But can I say to you that there is something very haunting about the death of Jesus? One of the most solemn features and factors of the death of Jesus is that the people who killed Jesus were, for the most part, ordinary people. In our red hymnal, after I finish my sermon this morning, we're going to sing that great Negro spiritual. Were you there? The very first sentence. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? That's an odd song. I don't think anyone would ever sing, were you there when Julius Caesar was crucified or killed? Were you there when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated? And yet, the existence of this spiritual song suggests that there was something different about the death of Jesus. It wasn't just a small group of people who killed Jesus. There is, my friend, that sense that we all were there when they killed Jesus. So as we begin this Holy Week, it is certainly fair to ask who the people that killed Jesus. One of the groups of people who had a major responsibility in Jesus' death were the religious leaders. The Gospels paint the Pharisees in very unfavorable ways, with good reason. They were self-righteous and they were opposed to the ministry of Jesus. But in the old days, before Jesus was born, when the Greeks and Antiochus Epiphanes invaded Jerusalem, violated the temple, slaughtered swine on the altar, tore up the Torah, it was the Pharisees who protested the desecration of their faith. Their name, Pharisee, means separated one. And they separated themselves from people by their intense devotion. They had protested the faith, the faith that was slaughtered by not only the Greeks, but by the Romans as well. The Pharisees believed God. They believed in God's revelation to Israel through the law. They had a higher standard of practical morality, and they resisted this secularism and the hedonism that Roman rule brought to Israel. They weren't bad people. So how could they endure Jesus? The Pharisees listened to his teaching, and they believed that if it caught hold, it would cause a radical shift in their faith. Didn't Jesus often say, you have heard it was said of old, but I say to you? When they heard that, what's this I say to you? Who does he think he is? He didn't act like them. He didn't talk like them. He didn't fast like they fasted. He healed on the Sabbath. He wasn't as structured as they were. He wasn't as righteous as they were. So who killed Jesus? The religious leaders were in part responsible, a big part. These religious, respected, and conscientious people. Friends, their religion wasn't a living religion. It had become a hardened religion with rigid adherence to rituals and customs that were way apart from God. But it wasn't just organized religion that killed Jesus. How about that organized business? Part of our text this morning deals with Jesus cleansing the temple. He was particularly hard on the money changers and those people who sold animals to be sacrificed at the temple. Can you imagine how offended these people felt? They too weren't bad people. They had no desire to hurt Jesus. If Jesus only minded his own business, they wouldn't have minded Jesus. They were people like you and me, working hard to take care of ourselves, support our families. When Jesus took that whip and drove them out of the temple, that was another nail in his coffin. He had touched a sensitive nerve. Problem was where they were doing it that offended Jesus, and that they were charging such high prices for those animals. Some things don't change, and greed is one of them. But it wasn't just the religious leaders and the business leaders who were against Jesus. It was politicians who helped raise that cross as well. Politicians doing what politicians commonly do, playing it safe. Even Pontius Pilate was not a bad person. He recognized that Jesus had done no wrong. He told the crowd, I find no fault in him. He even offered the crowd a way out. You can have this person, Jesus, or I will give you this criminal, Barabbas. What could Pilate do? Caiaphas, the high priest, and his associates were wily, shrewd religious politicians, and they were more than Pilate's match. They saw that Jesus' claim to be Messiah could cause a public uproar, could cause a revolution. And Caiaphas, as he surveyed all that, then with a cool, keen, shrewd eye, said to Pilate, it's expedient to you. It's expedient. Politicians like the word expedient. It's expedient to you that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation not perish. As for Pilate, he could not afford to be accused of being lax in preventing a public uprising. So Pilate washed his hands of the whole thing and chose to remain safe. Now, one